and simple way and not to obliterate. Right? Usually, you don't find this in social sciences, but literary research, this is almost a standard in Malayalam. People write like that. And some people are known for this. One student came to me to discuss her PhD thesis, and she was saying certain things. She was using the word aparam, wherever it is. She will say something, sir, she said 10 or 12 times aparam in about 2 minutes. So then I asked you, are you doing your PhD under the particular teacher? I mentioned the name. She said, how do you know that? So when you say aparam, I know. Because some people tend to use words like this, which has absolutely no sense anywhere. It's a very famous incident is, there is a concept called political unconsciousness, which a person used. And he has translated it as Rashtriya Abodham. And everywhere, so when you don't have an idea, you say, in the Rashtriya Abodham, okay. Then people will ask you, what is Rashtriya Abodham? He will look at you, oh, you don't understand even the basic things. If you don't understand, then you can't listen to this lecture or you can't read this book. So in that way, you are using words. This is called obfuscation. Next. Using difficult or impenetrable language on purpose, not clearly defining and explaining concepts and scientific terms. Okay. Now, all this, we have thesis to explain parts of dissertations, but I'm not doing that because we don't have time. Yes, next one. So we have seen plagiarism, main research misconducts, falsification, fabrication, bibliometric inflation, all that. We'll now focus on plagiarism. Shall we break now? Because we have to start from that. I wouldn't like to stop in between. Oh? Or you want to go up to 11:30? Okay. Chaya is the main thing. Right. Okay, next one, please. Okay, first one. Illa, adina mumba? Oh, okay, right. So you understand plagiarism in a very general way. It's projecting or presenting another person's work as your own. We know this, but it's not that simple when it is defined in research ethics. That's what we are trying to see. So copying from someone else's work without acknowledgement or credit. This is the simplest idea of plagiarism. So this is where that student, the thesis that I showed you at the beginning, went wrong. He thinks that plagiarism is, once you acknowledge the source, you are not plagiarizing. But the modern concept is, the thesis, if it doesn't have anything original, whether you acknowledge it or not, it is plagiarism. We'll see this in detail. Yes, you want to ask something?
Yes, sir. Sometimes, like I learned that sometimes the arrangement of others' voices or sentences is also your voice. So I wanted to clarify it from your perspective.
Sure. I'll come to that. We'll discuss all this in detail. Okay, next one. So the basic criteria is that whatever is not yours in your thesis should be acknowledged. This is a basic principle. Whatever is not original, how do you understand this? So it's not very simple, like you're acknowledging something. What's the reason for insisting that whatever is not original should be acknowledged? There are two reasons we'll see. Next one. There are ethical and methodological reasons for this, for saying that whatever is not yours should be acknowledged. I'll start with the second, methodological reason. How is your thesis evaluated? A PhD thesis, a doctoral dissertation, everywhere, all over the world, the basic criteria for evaluating a PhD thesis is that whether it makes an original contribution to knowledge. It's not a simple concept, what is original contribution? because it's not like, something, a discovery like Newton's discovery. But what is original? What is originality? This is how your thesis, in many universities, they I don't know whether you have looked at this. Many universities have a rubric or pro forma for evaluating dissertations, even for master's programs. So the final recommendation is that the reviewer makes is that this thesis has made an original contribution to knowledge. It's mandatory. Now, we don't have such rubrics. There are very detailed rubrics in some universities, how presentation, language, ideas, originality of ideas, argument, hypothesis formation, statistical analysis, all this have to be evaluated. Now, sometimes people don't bother to do this. So some very popular thesis reviewers, you send the thesis, next week the report will be sent because they have a template. This I remember a person valuing a thesis, one of my friends, I was sitting with him. So he has a template for all theses. So chapter 1 contains, it's a description of the chapter. So chapter 1 contains, then he will change it for another thesis. And he will write chapter 1 contains this. Chapter 2 contains, then his comment after each chapter is good. Second chapter, very good. Exceptional. Can be accepted. And finally he says, the researcher and the guide need to be congratulated for coming out with such a wonderful study. This is standard for all studies. So next week, because you don't bother to, okay. But basically, the reviewer is expected to evaluate whether it makes an original contribution to knowledge. I think you have to understand this. The concepts are very different. Like you are applying a particular methodology to a new area. It's an original contribution. It's that type of originality. It's not like scientific discovery and all that. In methodology which somebody else has developed, you are applying it to a new area such a way that it shows light on certain aspects of that subject in a new way. You are developing a methodology on your own. That's an original contribution. So the study has used a new methodology which has not been used in other theses. This is a important contribution. So this is something which you have to understand very clearly. Usually when we discuss research writing and all that, we discuss at day. So for different subjects, such as data is being interpreted with a different philosophy. It comes to a different finding. You are contradicting or refuting something which is accepted. It's an original contribution. So the first principle is that we are supposed to, the methodological consideration is that your thesis is being valued for its originality. So it's very important to make very clear what is your contribution and what is not your contribution. It should be very clear. So a person looks, so it can work in two ways. One thing is that you are presenting other people's contribution as your own. You are not plagiarizing, but somehow you suggest it. You write a lot of things, so you doesn't separate it from yours. So the first principle in plagiarism, in avoiding plagiarism, is make sure whatever you write, whether it's your word, your sentence, or your idea, it should be clear, demarcated from whatever you have taken from other sources. How we do it, that's actually the idea of plagiarism, how we are going to do it. There are a lot of things. I'll discuss some of the points later. So the methodological consideration of avoiding plagiarism is that your ideas, your writing. So in the past, when we were students, they had a slight idea of plagiarism. They always told us, if you take it from some source, you change it into your own language. You write it in your language, you take the idea, then it is not plagiarism. That's the idea. But please remember, any word, I'll come to it in detail, a word, idea, examples, even examples you are taking in some subjects, not in all subjects, they all come under plagiarism. This is the first one, methodological consideration. First one, ethical consideration. Again, I'll impress upon you through a story. The Rig Veda was translated into a prose translation of Rig Veda in Malayalam, was done by a person called OMC Narayanan Namboodiripad from Trichur. So he had a traditional Vedic education till he reached something like 20 or 21 years, Sanskrit and Vedic education. After that, he had higher studies in Vedas, in Sanskrit with Sanskrit scholars. And he started translating Rig Veda when he crossed the age of 60. So you remember a lifetime's knowledge effort. Still, it took him 7 years to complete the translation. The final volume came out when he was 67. 8 volumes have come out. This is an excellent translation, very scholarly translation. So another person did a translation which was published a few years back. This was done in 2 years. So nobody had heard of this person. But suddenly there's a translator of Rig Veda. So I looked at the translation. What happened there, Rig Vedas are basically mantras addressed at different gods and goddesses. So there is a mantra about sun, the sun god. So it goes, Hey Surya. This is the translation, the original translation. Then this person takes it and say, Hey Mitrame, Hey Enda Mitrame Surya. So he introduced just one word in between. So everywhere there are slight language changes, but still it took him 2 years to translate the thing. See the ethical problem of this. A person's work done through his life of effort and studies through 60, 67 years, another person is taking away without any consideration in 2 years. This is the ethical consideration. A person has done and produced this work, you are taking it away. We can't regulate this through laws. We can only tell them that this is what happens. So when a researcher begins his research, he understands the importance of avoiding plagiarism and doing ethical practices. Only then that culture can develop. Otherwise, people will think that it is easy. So there are many reasons for doing plagiarism. There was a study in UK which said that students from third world countries are more prone to plagiarism. At that time, it was very controversial because you are saying that third world people are not truthful. So there was a controversy. But actually what happened was that the study was carried on second language writing, not on science or anything, but people who study English as second language. So when you go to USA or UK, what do? You try to speak like people there. You try to write like people there. So they are not trying to plagiarize. The intention to plagiarize is not there. They are trying to produce a good work by imitating the native speakers. So because of this, when students are plagiarizing, we don't say plagiarism now. The term used is patch writing. It's called patch writing because the intention to plagiarize may not be there. It's called a patch writing. So here, of course, the intention is very clear. 67 years of work I can take away in 2 years. This is the ethical consideration. Okay, the definition, intentional. This is why we said that story. It has to be intentional. Sometimes it's not intentional. Intentional also can sometimes be I'm using a part of a poem from Walt Whitman or Shakespeare. I don't give any acknowledgement. Technically, it's plagiarism. But what do I want to understand? Of course, this is not applicable to thesis. In my article, I want you to identify it as Shakespeare's. What I am saying is Shakespeare's. You should be able to understand. Only then you will get this correct. Then you don't give an acknowledgement. So intention is very important. Ideas, important. See those things. Text. Usually we connect it to the text, but it can be idea also. A very difficult thing. Data, graphics, any intellectual, linguistic, or artistic creation. This is the definition. Or products, copying without acknowledging. Okay, next one. So the first one is textual material. We are very familiar. You take a text. There are plagiarism strategies. We don't have time to go into it. Plagiarism strategies is people plagiarize in different ways. So one standard way is you take a text, write it as your own. You don't give an acknowledgement. This is a typical plagiarism. Another way, you take a paragraph, change certain words. Change just certain words, keywords you change. You don't go into the content part of it. Like if you are writing about social science, you don't play with the social science part, but other language. So if there is a word strongly, you supply another word and change it. This is one strategy. Other persons, more intelligent people, will take a paragraph, split it and put it in different places. The third strategy, which requires a lot of linguistic skills, you invert sentences. A clause, a multi-clause sentence, you take the last clause and put it first and alter the sentence structure. So there are a lot of such things, not important for us now. So textual material, ideas, concepts, theories, findings, and analytical approaches. All these have to be acknowledged. It is taken from this. Methodologies, you are aware of this. So when you use a particular method, but of course there are methodologies like, post-test, pre-test style of design. You don't have to acknowledge, but there are particular methodology which is used in a study which has not been used before. You are supposed to acknowledge. Psychological tests, very, very important. So you have to acknowledge the psychology, questionnaires and rating scales. All this requires acknowledgement. Without acknowledgement, it will be plagiarism. Graphics, pictures and all that. Now people tend to take from Wikipedia or from internet and use it. You are supposed to acknowledge. It's actually a copyright issue, but usually nobody bothers. But now like photographs and all that gets a watermark. Certain companies do it. They hold the pictures and like Alamy and all that. Use it, their watermark will also appear. Linguistic creations. Technical terms, neologisms and phraseologies. See, linguistic creations, once it goes into a dictionary, you don't have to acknowledge. But another word, for example, plagiarism, there was no Malayalam word. So I coined the term Pagarpu Rajana, and the plagiarist is called Pagarpu Rajayitavu. Unless it goes into a dictionary, normally you are supposed to acknowledge me that this person has used it in this article or in this book. This is the basic idea. Regular use, but there are special cases relating to a particular author. Examples. This differs in different but in linguistics, very, very essential that the examples are also acknowledged. Because creating an example is something which requires a lot of understanding of that language. So I give an example from Malayalam. I have to be a native speaker of Malayalam, or should have a native speaker like command over Malayalam. Also, I should be able to understand the concept which is explained there. So this is why examples are given acknowledgement. Next one. Okay, I think I'll stop here. I think there are some question, please.
Yes. So I was saying that I have learned that the arrangement of sentences of others is also sometimes your voice. For example, I read a very good work. I learned it from a workshop, Shivani Kapoor from CSTS. She taught that sometimes arrangement is also your voice. The work she gave as example was a work of an anthropologist, and her argument was that the science is gendered in nature. So for that, for a paragraph, her sentence was just one or two, and all the things she quoted, she cited from someone else. she brought these sentences about examples of how science can be gendered. So she cited everything, and then she gave her argument, like she brought something new, original. Her argument that through these examples, the science is gendered in nature. So she brought something original, but the 90% of the page was occupied by others' works. So, the examples you were showing.
Yes.
So in this way, it will not be counted as plagiarism, right?
It will be counted as plagiarism. I'll explain. The first part of your question, the arrangement of some ideas. Normally, it's difficult to establish that you have followed the arrangement. But let me ask you a question. Can you plagiarize a dictionary? Because dictionary doesn't contain original product, right? Everything contains Malayalam words or English words, which doesn't belong to anybody. But plagiarism is applicable to dictionary also. There's a very famous case about this, which happened in Poland. There was a dictionary, Polish-English dictionary, which was published in 1970s. In 1990, another company made certain changes here and there and published it as their own. And the second company, by that time maybe publication and globalization and all that, it sold millions of copies, made a lot of money. So the first company filed a suit. The second company's argument in the court was that it contains words from Polish language which doesn't belong to anybody. It's not the first company which created Polish words. So there is no copyright. There is a field called forensic linguistics, which looks at such issues. So the court asked a forensic linguist to examine this and offer his comments. So his comment, what he did was, he took some 50 words from, we say it's called a head word, or we call a lemma. One word and its explanations. So he said it's actually Polish word. But see, what we do in dictionary is that each word has different senses. So if you take a word like tala, first is of course head, second is avane bhayangara talayana, buddhi, intelligence. That's another meaning. Avan talayil irikkunna oru top position aanu, talayvar nokka varuna word. Idana senses. So the sense, how you are arranging, there is some principles behind it. Usually you start with the most popular sense, then you go to less frequent one. Like that there are certain arrangements. So he said, the arrangements are the lexicographer's contribution to the dictionary, not the word. This word. So you cannot say that you take two dictionaries, the arrangement for all the words will be same, or 60% of the words will be same. This is one aspect. Second aspect is like you take a textbook, let's say a textbook of physics. You are explaining a concept. There is an example for the concept. There is a problem coming from the concept. So this is a pedagogic arrangement. See, you are not just writing a theory in physics, but you are presenting it in a pedagogic way, which has an arrangement. So I start with a definition, I go to an explanation, maybe there are subheads also, definition, explanation, theory, like that. So this arrangement is mine. So this comes under plagiarism, arrangement. Is that clear? Okay. Tea is ready, and my throat is not in a good situation. Okay, thank you.